understand that there were a lot of kids, high school kids, from the Florida school that was shot up, and they already went to their state house and talked with their legislators. And they're planning to go to Washington, D.C. in about 3-4 weeks. I already heard on the radio this morning, one principal said, if any of our kids are not here, they leave for that, they're in big trouble. But I imagine that might be the greatest civics lesson they learned in that whole time. Let us pray. Lord, let your Spirit be upon us, that you would guide and direct us in your grace and love. Let us know what it is to be a servant, so that any leadership we do flows from your heart and not our own greed. In Jesus' name, amen. The amazing thing about this, with these high school kids, is not the political thing, though that may have shifted. The amazing thing is that these kids, I believe, are going forth and leading because somebody else was leading for them. Somebody else showed them what it was to be a servant leader. Because there was a coach, athletic director, and teachers that literally put themselves on the line, and some died for it, because they had compassion and care for the children, the young adults that they are serving. That's a servant's heart. That's servant leadership. Jesus picks up a towel. And thank you. She's awake right now. That was great about, that's disgusting. You know. And Jesus picks up the towel, and they would have been just as confused as these kids were. Much more so, actually. Because there's no way the head guy is going to be washing my feet. It's just not going to happen. And they wouldn't feel comfortable with him doing that. I get a kick out of Peter. You're not going to wash my feet. Unless I wash your feet, you're not going to be part of the kingdom. Okay, then head, toe, everything. Let's go for it. You know, he says, no, it's okay. Your feet are quite enough. Feet is always funny. Jesus lets us know what it means to be a servant leader right off the bat. Verse 1, check this out. Now before the festival of the Passover, that's no small significance there. Timing is big. Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world to go to the Father. When he says, my time, my hour has come, he's not talking about happy hour. This means the cross. Pope Francis, I suspect, shook up people, I think a year or two ago, when coming over Easter time, that Holy Week, when he goes out there and washes feet, and he finds the lowest of the low, prisoners or people that were homeless from various countries he wasn't even supposed to talk with, and they were Muslim, not even Catholic, and not even Christian. Some of them were, I don't know what all the rest of them were. And he purposely brings to those people who were supposed to be the lowest of the low, whose feet would not be manicured, who would not be very pretty. And he goes and bends down his papal robe. And he was teaching the whole Catholic Church, in fact the whole world, what it means to have a servant's heart. At some point, the church, part of our mission, part of our institutional side, part of the call in Christ, will ask people to tithe or give some percentage giving, whatever is appropriate for you. And we'll ask that some of that be given to the church here. Some of it. Doesn't have to be all of it. That's your business. But we will only do that after I tell you that Babs and I tithe. You know, when the Synod started this Faith Forward thing, they asked the pastors to all give first before they tell anybody else about it. And we did. I'm very happy to say that my mom and Babs and I were the first ones that actually sent something in. The bishop announced his gift over 3 years first, but ours was the first money check that was actually in. And I like to say that. But before we're going to ask anybody else, Babs, I have to show that we're giving too. That's the servant's heart. Jesus not only calls for a servant's heart, he puts it out there when he says, "My hour has come." I am certainly no Christ figure, but it is my hope in my call here at church that I demonstrated what it is to have a servant's heart, so that I may ask you to do the same as well. I talked with some very precious and very important young people and their parents the other day, and I said, with the fear, this, that, and the other going on in the world, it's one thing to get over the moment, but it's much more important that they have a spirit here, because if that spirit is centered and grounded in Christ, then they're not going to be caught up with the latest fear or the latest fad or whatever nonsense goes on elsewhere. Because it's like a gyroscope that keeps you centered. Today, for most of my sermon, I want to share a story. I have a file for preaching illustrations, and this guy is phenomenal. This is a chaplain who served in Korea towards the early parts when things went bad. At that point, they still thought the Chinese were not going to get into the Korean War. They were wrong. They were very wrong. Chaplain Emil Capone is here giving Eucharist. They used the hood of a Jeep, and he gives communion right there in the field. There's three guys they mentioned here, and they tell the story later on. And they rallied, this Capone guy rallied Capone. I better say Capone and not Capone. That's a whole different character. Father Emil, let's go with that. That'll keep me out of trouble. Father Emil, he rallied people, 150, and ragged men to embrace life and forgive their enemies. They don't consider themselves to be experts on miracles, but this guy was. Chaplain Emil was in a situation where there was 20,000 Chinese rushing in, and there was 3,000 of them. Most of the units pulled back, and 800 were left to cover the leaving. Chaplain Emil was one of them. And instead of leaving, he stayed. And he was jumping from foxhole to foxhole, praying for guys and encouraging them. And they were begging him to leave, but he wouldn't. A lot of times what he was doing is giving last rites to these guys. A last moment. And I don't think he asked first, well, are you Catholic? No, so I'm not serving you. No, I don't think he's doing it. In fact, I know for a fact, because of what they said here, some of these people were atheists. And he was giving them prayers. They were taken as prisoners. And they were taken over about a 30-mile route they called the Death March. And when one guy was there, as the troops were infiltrated, overrun, and one of the Chinese or North Vietcong, I got the wrong war. North Koreans had a rifle pointed at the head of one of his people. Father Emil just comes over and knocks the guy aside, knocks the rifle aside, picks the guy up because he had a shattered ankle. And he carries a piggyback from there. He encouraged others to pick them up because, you see, if they fell behind, they heard what was going on. They heard the shots behind them, and the people that fell behind in that march were shot. And he stayed with them through the whole time and carried people. And then when they were in the prison camp, they weren't fed. Well, it's not even worth mentioning what they were fed. So he not only gave a blessing, but he led people to escape from the prison camp, go out at night, steal whatever food they could get by and come back, and he would share food, even his own. He gave them a blessing of forgiveness for stealing. I think that was a pretty good one. It goes on from there. He carried on. At one point, they let him lead worship for Easter morning for about 80 officers. And I think they came to regret that, because he did a great job. The Spirit was flowing. At one point, they, to counter this, the guard, the Korean guard, told them that now he picked out one guy who was supposed to espouse the Lenin and Marx. And let me see here. And as he was doing so, and he did what they said, he also offered in the name of Tube Comedy, like Laurel and Hardy, put those names in too when he was talking about Lenin and Marx. They caught it. Yeah, they actually did that. And then this guy said he was so angry at the officer who did this that he was just going to shoot them all. And he, Rabbi or Father Neil, Father Neil said, the stupid son of a fool. He later recanted for swearing. He goes on, and they protected him, but as he cared for others, he eventually became ill. He was ignoring his injuries beforehand, and they wanted to take him to what they called a hospital. It was really a death house. There was no cots, no medication, and he knew what would happen. And as he's going up there, he gives this little tin that's left, that's supposed to hold the communion wafers. He gives that to one of the guys. And he gives the prayer book that he had borrowed from somebody, he gives that back to him because he knows he's given everything he's got because he knows what's going to happen. 2 days later, he did die. And before he did, he prayed for another guy up there who was supposed to die, and he was healed. He came back, and he was healed. They went on from there. Later on, as they looked at this various prison camps, there was a far lower death rate in that prison camp than any others. Later on, somebody had a young man who kind of did stupid things at times, had something going on in his skull. He prayed, being a Catholic, they have to pray through a saint. And so he prayed through Father Emil, didn't know him. This was 20 years later, in the 60s. And the guy had a miraculous healing. Some of his people that were with him are asking for sainthood for him. I think this